Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Real. I'm your hostess, Naini, and my co-host is Carlos. Hi, Carlos. How are you doing?
Hey, Nini. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm so excited. We have a very special guest here with us, right?
We
do you want to
do.
introduce the guest to the public?
Say hi. Say hola. 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 Galilea. Galilea.
Hi.
We're working early. You know what I mean? Getting them to start working in loans early.
It's take your kids to school to work day today, you know?
Apparently it is.
Yes, that's what it is. It's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. I was just looking to the side like, I'm very special, excuse me. Hi, beautiful.
Say hola.
All right. So today she's going to be helping us talk about very current, which is locked-in sellers that are locking out buyers. And we're going to be talking about some strategies for those buyers to win in today's very tight market. So I think this one is a very current, very relative, and I think it's going to help a lot of people come up with, ideas that is not just about going high, right, in price. There's things that we can kind of pursue. And we're going to discuss all those things today, or some of them anyway.
Yep. Yeah, it's not always about going high because, the house is only going to appraise for so much. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Even
and
if
then
you go higher.
Our myth of the day is super related to that too. So we're going to start there.
All right.
You have to waive all contingencies if you want to win a home in this market.
Ready, Galilea? Ready?
I'm going to say it is false because you don't have to. But yes, if you are able to, great, good for you. But you don't have to. There's definitely ways to go about it, right?
There are other ways around it, correct. There's other ways to win an offer than just waiving everything and seeing what luck you get.
Exactly. Yeah, and we're going to discuss some in particular in the next topics. But there are some that we're not, and I'm just going to bring it up. Like things like you don't have to waive your inspection contingency. You can, if you want to, just put a threshold amount and say, look, I'm not going to ask for any repairs that are less than, let's say, $1,000. But, if they are, that way you're focusing on major items, right? So that's one way to go about it and not necessarily waive.
I've also seen where the buyer will say, hey, listen, I'll cover FHA repairs. So whatever, the appraisal calls for as far as an FHA repair, I'll cover it.
Exactly. That way.
And that helps them, win the offers.
Exactly. Yeah, you see, she agrees. But yeah, so if you have an FHA loan or a VA loan and the house may have some requests, you can just put that on your offer ahead of time and say, look, seller, I'm willing to do those repairs if the appraiser requests anything. I'll take care of it. And you can also put a threshold on that and say, look, I'm willing to do repairs if they are up to a certain amount, right? That way you're not just digging a hole ahead of time in case there's something major that costs a lot.
Absolutely.
There's ways to go about it. Another very, very common one that we can bring up on here, since we're not talking later, is the transfer tax. A very, very popular one. You can offer to pay the seller's portion of the transfer tax.
Yep. The transfer tax is a big one. I'm seeing a lot of offers come in like that still. So like as of yesterday, I had somebody put in an offer, where they were willing to pay the transfer tax.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if this one is going to be a part of, I don't know if this is going to be a part of this seminar, this podcast episode. Yeah. But another one is where the buyer will also help the seller with covering realtor commissions now that the NAR thing happened. Exactly. So I've seen those too after the NAR thing.
Yeah, that's not part of ours, but it's definitely another thing that it can be offered.
Oh, look, I got it.
Yes, to strengthen your offer. Yeah, you can just say, hey, usually buyers don't pay, but you can say, hey, seller, I'll pay for my buyer's agent commission, and you don't have to. Or you can do a portion as well. You don't have to be the entirety of it. But yeah, that anything that you can afford to offer without having to increase the purchase price because maybe you're maxed out on your DTI, right? Or you don't necessarily want to overpay on the home. There's so many other things that we can put in place to counter that. So let's get right into it then.
And before we get started, if you like it, remember, like, share, and follow for more.
Yes, I hear.
Yay, Galilea, yay!
Can you tell them like, share, and follow?
Clap, clap. Let's see. Oh, I caved already. I already gave her a piece.
You did it too soon, Carlos.
Hey, what can I do?
Gonna be like, you're giving out our candy.
Hey, the things we do for the podcast, okay? The things we do so that we can do this podcast, and people can get the information, and we don't have the baby streaming in the background. I mean, sacrifices we have to make.
She's doing so good, so that's all that matters. Alrighty, so our topic of the day, like I said, locked in, locked out buyers, strategies to win today's target market. So what is locked in? I mean, do you want to explain that, Carlos? Like the locked in sellers expression. Do you actually have you ever heard about that before?
I really haven't, no.
Yeah. So they say that locked-in sellers is a new term that they kind of created to describe sellers since the COVID that are currently on those like super ultra low interest rates.
Oh, the golden handcuffs.
Yeah,
see, I know it by the golden handcuffs.
Different names, yeah. But yeah, so the sellers they're locked in. They're locked in sellers because there is such an ultra low rate of like 2% that they
2.99, 2.25, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, no, I'm not leaving my house. I have a great rate. I'm sticking around a little longer. Even though they may be needing to move or thinking about moving, they're kind of delaying that because of that super low rate.
It's a big part of their list between their pros and the cons that they're putting together, and they're like, well, we're gonna lose that $299.
Yeah, and then we'll have to pay basically $1,000 more for the same house elsewhere. Yeah, so that's a big thing, and it's a very impactful situation right now in our market. What's that doing? It's that it's decreasing inventory, of course, because people are not necessarily moving as much or as naturally as we usually see on a yearly basis because of the rates. And then because of that, of course, we see a rising in prices, very, very minimal price adjustments or drops. And of course, we've been seeing bidding wars since COVID happens. So it's all kind of like a snowball effect.
Even today, like I said yesterday, my agent called me and was like, hey, what's their absolute max they can go to, and can they cover the transfer tax, and and is there any appraisal gap they can do also, as the rates drop, you're gonna see that more because people are gonna be more willing to let go of the golden handcuffs. If they might not want an 8%, then they're like, hey, I'm not moving for 8%, but hey, if I'm at a 6.5, I'm okay, because whether it's the family needs the space or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The hopes is that it's going to stabilize eventually because people that need to sell are going to end up having to sell, and then the rates are going to be a wash. But I feel like it's going to be a few years before we're completely seeing those ultra high low rates going completely away from those.
I think it's gonna take another COVID for us to get into 2% again.
If ever.
That's just my personal opinion, since we're throwing it out there.
And I'm right there with you. I don't know about that. That's I hope it doesn't come not through those means, because that was too much. So.
All right, look, like, share, and follow for more. Coming up right now.
Yeah, remember to put it at the bottom. So we're going to bring up some 5 buyer strategies to you guys. The first one, and it's probably going to be more on the wheelhouse of Carlos, it is to explore the ARMs, the adjustable rate mortgages, as an option. And he's going to get in more detail with it, but I feel like that could be an option, but you need to run the numbers with a lender to ensure that is a feasible option that is financially, actually okay to go in that route.
Yeah, so ARMs they were very, very popular before. They're still around. they're just not as attractive.
Not as low
You
as
know,
they should be, right?
as far as you're not getting that big of a difference between a 30-year fix and an ARM. You know, they make more sense when you're getting into like big investments. You know, then an ARM makes sense. When you're doing like second homes, stuff like that, then you can kind of, then an ARM might make sense.
Yeah.
Because of the loan level pricing adjustments and all that stuff that happen with the second homes. Yeah. But overall, I would say an ARM typically isn't the way to go. I would say I very rarely like even price out an ARM. You know, it's very, very client specific, very situation specific to know if it's going to be beneficial to the client or not.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, depending on the rates, right? That could potentially work. And just so people understand what the ARM is and why it would be a feasible option. Let's say the ARM does happen to be a much lower rate that's going to save you, a couple $100 every month. And then Carlos numbers and tell you like, look, it makes sense to go for a 5-1 ARM, which is 5 years fixed, and then it varies afterwards. You would only suggest that for buyers that are intentionally buying with the idea of already selling in 5 years from now, right? Maybe that house.
Right. Like their exit strategy is 5 years.
Exactly. And there's also a 7-1 and so on and so forth. I do believe sometimes the shorter, the better deal you get, right, Carlos? Is that what you have to say?
Yeah. So the shorter the term, the better the deal you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And then it'll adjust it, but there's limits to how much it can adjust, like how high it can go, like your ceiling and stuff. Yeah. It's a little more complex, and people got burned by it a lot before. So a lot of people are very afraid of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially
after 2008, I think that was a big awakening of stay away from the ARMs, from the very.
Yeah, I get a lot of first time home buyers, and we're doing our consultation, and we're talking about rates, or we're shopping the rate to see like what rate they're gonna get and stuff, and they're like, this is 30 years, right? This isn't gonna adjust on me, right? I'm like, no. Don't
worry.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I get that question too. Like, is it gonna stay the same? Right? Yes. I think something we can even tie into this, but just to make sure everybody understands, it's not an ARM, is not an adjustable rate, is the 2-1 buy down. That right? As that could be an option too if someone is maybe looking to save some money on the first few years of being in the house and they have cash up front. That might be an option. That way they can get into the home and maybe wait for that rate to drop and refinance in 2 years, right? Do you want to break that down too? That way people understand?
Sure. So I see, we do that a lot. For people that know where the market, like we know that the market isn't going to be up forever or down forever. You know what I mean? Like it's just not going to happen because it can't be up all the time or down all the time, because if it was up all the time, the economy would have moved, and if it was down all the time, inflation would be through the roof. So there has to be that control. It's like a roller coaster or like waves, however, whatever.
Whatever you're into.
Yeah. Whatever example makes you understand it better, that's fine. But a lot of people are getting, like for example, like a lot of people that buy like new construction, they'll get like a 2-1 buy down or a 3-1 buy down offered by the construction company, where now like that time is kind of like running, it's kind of like hit its course, and then they come back to me for the refi, because then they're going to be close to the rate where they are. Like if you had a 7% interest rate, or like, let's say, I think maybe like a year or so ago, the rates were like closer to the 8, remember?
Yeah.
And you had a 2-1 buy down. Well, then you were, closer to the 6. So you'd start at 6.87 and then 7, or let's say you'd start at 5.87, then it would be 6.87. And then you'd go to the 7.87, which is the one where you actually qualify for. And the cool thing about the buy down is, let's say you do a 2-1 buy down at say like 8%. So you have like a 6.875, and then a 7.875. Well, the rates got better, so now you can actually refinance that, lock in at, say, that 6 3/4 or whatever the rate is, and what do you call it? And then you can keep the money that was in that, because essentially, I guess I should go back and explain how the 2-1 buy down works. My bad.
just a quick summary of like what the idea behind is. Yeah.
So a 2-1 buy down is essentially, think of like a separate escrow account where, let's say you have your payment with your higher rate is going to be $1,500, right? A month. And your payment with the lower rate is going to say $1,100 a month. So your first year, and then let's say you have, I don't know, $7,000 in that escrow account for that 2-1 buy down. So your first year, every month, you're going to pay $1,100 out of your pocket, and the escrow account is going to be drawn $400 to cover your $1,500 a month, because that's your true payment, So if there's money in, say, year 2, and now you can like lock and you're pretty much at the same place, but you don't have to worry about going up again, then you do that. And then you can permanently buy the rate down, or you can put it towards your principal, or however you want to do it when you refinance it. But that's essentially how the buy down works. A lot of people will ask the seller for seller assist, and to use the buy down. Some lenders, we have a 1-0 buy down, so we have a 1-year buy down that we give to the client. It's a special program, but yes, they can qualify for that.
Nice. Yeah, so that can save a lot of money, especially if they manage to have either the builder or the lender assist with that, or if we're not in a competitive situation, which goes against this episode, but if you find yourself in a position where you can negotiate seller's assistance, you can have the seller pay for your 2-in-1 buy down or 3-in-1 buy down, save thousands of dollars in the first and second year, and then hopefully the interest rates will be in a better position where you can lower even further. So I feel like that would be another very good use of credits, either your own credits or the seller's credits, if that's the situation.
Absolutely.
That, because I feel like that's a good one that people maybe don't know about it too.
Yeah, we talked about the buy down, but we didn't explain what it was. I was like, wait, I think I'm going backwards here.
You did good.
Thank you. I recovered.
Recover well, yeah. The second strategy then would be on your search itself, right? So I would say sometimes people come to me and they have a very tunnel, drill down vision of what they're looking for. And then once we start looking at homes, they understand that, sometimes some things might be okay, might be just wants, not needs, right? So they sometimes come to me and say, I want 3 bedrooms and I need 2.5 baths. And I'm like, okay. And then we start looking at that, and it's not working. And then like, what? I think I can make it work if it's just 1.5 bath or 2 full baths, right? So change your criteria can actually expand your search, and then allow you to see more homes that have less competition. The other things too is the radius, right? If you're very I want to be in this neighborhood, you're limiting your pool of options, and maybe that neighborhood just happens to be super competitive. But now if you allow yourself to search different areas that make sense as well, but maybe it wasn't your primary area, you might maybe not have as much competition, and it might still be something you're comfortable with. So I always recommend my clients drive around, see other areas, so not just what but explore different areas, because you might like a different area that you didn't even know about, and maybe that area is not going to be as competitive as the one you want to originally, right? And then type of homes too, change the criteria of the home style. Maybe you wanted a rancher, but maybe you're okay if it's a 2-floor, but there's a first bedroom and first floor bedroom and bathroom, right? So maybe that works as well. And then we are going to have a bigger selection of houses available. So all those things can really, change it up and increase your chances of potentially getting a home, not just from home. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say just to add up to a little bit of what you're saying, I think that goes back to the wants and needs. People say, oh, I need 2.5 bathrooms. And then they're seeing there's no way I'm getting 2.5 bathrooms. You know what? I'll live with 2. It's okay. I can give up the half.
Yeah.
You know,
and they only realize that after we start getting on it. You know what I mean? So
absolutely, absolutely. And then sometimes like I talk to people and they're like, oh, I want to have this monthly payment, and I want to be here. I'm like, well, you either want that monthly payment or you want to be here.
yeah.
You you can't have them both. So,
Not
it's
out.
like, yeah. So especially like in the valley's getting very expensive, and people still want to have that $1,200, $1,300 a month payment. And I'm like, hey, listen, like,
Yeah,
you might be driving a little bit, like, given your budget, I would say you're probably driving about 20 to 30 minutes, which isn't a bad commute. You know what I mean? Like, if you're telling me you're commuting from, Easton to New York, you'd be like, do you really want that house? You know what I mean? But
yeah.
if it's a 20, 30 minute, you know what I mean? It's not too bad.
Different story. Exactly. Yeah. And honestly, the sooner they realize this and the sooner they start expanding that type of search, the better it's going to be and the more options they're going to have. And, it will be their process for sure. All right. So moving on to the third
I'm in the sub with her now.
Oh, she's getting tired. Look at that. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I don't know. She's either it's gonna kick in or she's gonna be like, all right, I guess I could take a nap now.
Oh Lord. Hopefully it does not kick in. Otherwise you're gonna have a fun afternoon.
Oh yeah. No, after the podcast I'll be okay. I just want to keep her calm during the podcast.
Alrighty, so moving on to number 3, the third strategy is to use an appraisal gap strategy. So we mentioned a few other things that you can do to strengthen your offer, but this one is a big one as well, especially if you are willing to go a little bit higher than the asking price or the price of the houses listed at. One thing that I want to just really exercise on this, appraisals, they are required by the lender, especially if you're putting less than 20% money down. Sometimes they may waive an appraisal if you're putting 20% or more, right? But for the most part, it's going to be a requirement, which means we have to have a contingency in place for that appraisal to happen, which also means if you offer $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 over the purchase price, the asking price of the seller, that does not mean forced legally to pay for that because you're having an appraisal contingency in place that protects you as the buyer. So if the property, let's say, is listed for $300,000, you offer $350,000, and then the appraisal comes back at $330,000, you're only legally required to pay $330,000, and then that remainder $20,000, the seller has to accept it, or you can back out and receive your deposit back because you are protected from that contingency. Now, because of that, what you can do to strengthen your offer is say, hey, seller, if that does happen and the appraisal comes back shorter, I am willing to pay for a certain amount or even the whole amount, depending on your financial capacity, to cover that gap if there is one. And then we can put that ahead of time on your offer and say, look, we're willing to cover up to $10,000 in appraisal gap if there is one. And then that means if there is a gap, it's only up to that amount that you offer, not more, not less, not surpassing the original purchase price, none of that. But you will fulfill whatever gap based on what you're offering.
Yeah, I was going to say that, like you said, it's not like they have to pay it if it comes in, lower. Like if the buyer and seller can't come to an agreement, through negotiations, then they can just back out of the
contract.
Of the contract, yeah.
Yeah.
And they would get their deposit back and all that stuff. The only thing they lost was the appraisal money. That's it.
Exactly. So this appraisal gap is just a way to tell the seller, yes, I'm a strong buyer, and yes, I'm wanting to buy your house, and I'm willing to pay a certain amount towards an appraisal gap if one happens to happen, right?
It's like, I really want your house. I want your house so bad, I will overpay for it if it comes in low.
That is right. And that, just to make sure everybody understands that is listening, appraisal gaps, if you do happen to offer them, the bank is not going to cover that. You are covering that with cash out of pocket. So any appraisal gap you offer will increase your total closing costs if applied, right? If it happens to have an appraisal gap and you offer 10,000 and the full 10,000 needs to go towards the gap, that means your closing costs are going to increase by $10,000. So that's just, the bank's not going to lend you more money because you decide to offer appraisal gap. It does not work like that.
No. The bank is only going to lend you based on what the property appraises for, because the bank isn't going to let you get into more debt than your program will allow, essentially.
Exactly. So just so you guys understand, this is definitely for someone that, of course, has the funds to do it, but they are not wanting necessarily to, they're willing to go higher in price, but they are also guaranteeing to the seller a certain amount that will strengthen their offer. So, and it does require the funds for it. So just so you guys understand, this might not be for everyone, but this is an option available if you do have the funds to do it.
Correct.
So next, we have get pre-underwritten, not just pre-approved. And Carlos is going to explain how that works. But before that, I'm just going to say, we have explained here before the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. This is not it, right? Pre-qualification, verbal, maybe they looked at your soft pull of your credit, and then pre-approval is not. Pre-approval is a hard inquiry on your credit. They actually verify funds, all that. Pre-underwritten is the next step over beyond the pre-approval. So I'll let you explain that, Carlos.
Okay, so I'll give a little refresher there. Pre-qual is just when you say, hey, Carlos, I work at XYZ company and I make X amount of money and my credit is X and I have X saved up, and it's all a conversation and I don't see a document. That's a pre-qual. Pre-approval is you say, hey, Carlos, I work at XYZ company, and then I have my processor reach out to XYZ company and confirm that you really work there, that you're really making the money you're making, and I look at the bank accounts, and that's a pre-approval, right? Now, when we go to pre-underwritten, or we call it a certified credit approval, it's that an underwriter actually looks at the file as if it was under contract and getting ready to close. So the client is essentially clear to close pending appraisal and title. That's it. Like, the client's assets have been verified through underwriting. Income was calculated by underwriting. Everything was through underwriting, so that if anything, when you put in an offer, all you'll need is title. And if you get an appraisal waiver, then all you need is title, and even need the appraisal.
Wow. Yeah. So basically, it makes that buyer that much stronger when they are offering, because really it's almost like a cash buyer in a way, pending an appraisal and title work, which you have a title work for cash as well. You may not have an appraisal, right? But that would be the only difference between a cash buyer and a buyer that is pre-underwritten. So that is a very, very good way of turning your offer.
It's a good tool that we use when we see that there's a client that's just losing out offers left and right, especially like on an FHA, because like we said before, or VA, or one of those, where people think that they're not qualified buyers. But 710 credit score on average, I'm never going to forget that number.
Exactly. It's much higher than you think.
Yeah. So I would say that that's a tool that we use when we see that the client is getting, that the client is kind of losing out on offers because of that. It's like, hey, listen, you could think what you want about a VA or a USDA or an FHA. It doesn't matter, because this client is already fully underwritten. All we have to see is if your house qualifies.
That's amazing. Yeah. And does your pre-approval, when someone does the CCA, looks any different?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a different certificate. Yeah. And I let the realtor, like the listing agent, I'll call him and like, hey, listen, like this isn't a pre-approval. This is fully underwritten. Like all we need is appraisal and title. We're done.
Nice. Okay.
You know, and I do that sometimes. Like let's say we have a deal where for whatever reason the deal falls through, you know, but the client still is gonna buy a house. I'll be like, hey, listen, like this client was already fully approved. All we need is this. You know what I mean? Like I can issue a CCA because of that.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like that's one that is easy to get it done. It's not going to cost them anything extra, but it's definitely going to make them a little more competitive, especially in today's market. So no break. You can just get this done. That's better. Alrighty, so moving on to the last strategy. Now this one, full disclosure, is not necessarily going to apply to this tight market because we're talking multiple offer situation, right? But it's more in a sense of, okay, you found a home, you're not competing, right?
Right.
And you are able to ask for sellers concessions, but you can get creative with how you're using those concessions. And it's going to tie back to where we brought it in the beginning of this episode with the 2-in-1 buy down. So yes, you could just ask for a reduction on the purchase price if you found a home that's been sitting for a little longer. And nowadays, 7 days is already too long, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Like 2019, a house could be in the market for 30 days and we're still like, yeah, that's going to sell quick. And now it's quick back then. And now it's too long. It's sitting for too long. It's crazy. But yeah, anyway, so you, instead of maybe asking for a price reduction of $5,000, $10,000, which really, in our scheme of things, might change your monthly payment by $50, right? Let's be honest.
Not even.
A big impact, yeah. Then
not even, yeah.
Use those instead of that and reducing the price, ask for concessions like seller's credits, and then reduce your closing cost overall. Or you can use that to do the 2-in-1 buy down we talked about and reduce your rate for the first 2 to 3 years of being in that home. And now you're saving thousands because, you know, a full point reduction, it's already, what is it? You on average, what would you say, depending on the price range, of course, but
yeah, that's a tough one to answer. But like depending on the price range, like on a high price range, it makes sense to do like a buy down. You know what I mean, or like buy the rate down because
$100.
It could be significant, but in most scenarios, you know, it's like $20-$30 a month. You know what I mean, for 1 extra percent, it costs a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah.
If it makes sense and you're in a price range, let's say 300 plus, I think that makes sense. If you have a 2% interest rate reduction, you're definitely going to be saving close to $300 a month. A
decent amount, yeah.
Yeah. So it would make sense to use that seller concession towards a 2-in-1 buy down at that point. Or if you are at a lower price range, just use it to reduce your closing costs altogether. That way you can go into the home with minimum money out of pocket. And you know, get into the home and use the money you have to put it towards the house itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a deal where I just got the contract yesterday, where the person was going to be putting like 15% down, and they were going to be saving like $500 a month, and I'm like, you make the money. Let's be honest. I've seen your taxes. You make the money. Yeah. Instead of doing that, let's get you a lower closing cost. Keep the money that you have, and now you have a year's worth of reserves. You know, if you have a bad month, you're covered. If you have good months, you can put more money towards principal. You know, so it's all about like how you structure it. You know. Yeah,
and educating our clients too in regards of their monthly payments and moving forward after buy the house, right? Because just by setting out by weekly payments, meaning every 2 weeks, not by monthly, because that is only 2 times a month, but by weekly, since we have 52 weeks in a year, you end up making 1 full payment a year without actually feeling like you're making a full payment, because majority of people get paid every 2 weeks anyway. So you can make, you know, your payments bi-weekly. And I don't mean a full payment, right, bi-weekly. I mean, like, it's half of your payment, but you do have to structure that with your servicing mortgage company. And that will save you on average about 7 years of the 30-year mortgage. If you just do that by paying.
It saves you. It could save you like $100,000 in interest by doing that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, depending, I mean, of course, depending on the loan amount. I'm sorry. Yeah. I should have thrown that disclaimer in there.
Yeah, I know years is an average about 7 years. You can shave it off easily.
Yeah.
Just from doing that. Now you're no longer 30 years. You're looking at a 21-year mortgage, right? And then if you're on top of that, you have the means to pay about $100 extra towards principal per payment. That would make it, more than a full payment for the year, depending on your mortgage amount. And that can also reduce another 5 to 7 years just from doing very small increments payments on your principal. So your 30-year really should be only 15 if you're really smart about it.
Yeah, there's definitely ways. And when my clients ask me about it, like they'll say, oh, well, can I do a 15-year? Well, the rate on the 15 years isn't that much better. Let's do a 30. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you how much you need to contribute monthly to your principal so that you're off in 15 and you're saving the interest regardless. So
yeah. And then if you have and you don't not able to do it, you can still not do it. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of
exactly. That's exactly my point. I always tell everybody, listen, it's always take a 30, and if you can throw $2,000 at it in 1 month, great. But if you can't every month, well, now you're stuck. So
yeah. I'm a little. I mean, I don't think the 15-year, unless you're getting a substantial reduction on interest rate, I don't foresee being the best.
But it's really not there right now. That's the thing. Like if you're looking at a 20 and a 15, like they're really not that much better than the 30, except your payment is that much higher. Well, for that, give me the 30 and just let me contribute as much as I want.
Yeah, because honestly, I don't think you need to pay nearly as much on a 30-year to get your 15 years as you would on a 15-year loan. And you have to do that every month regardless. So yeah, I think the 30 is always the best, unless again there's a huge drop on the 15, which is not the case normally.
It's not right now, at least. That much I can tell you.
Yeah, exactly. And again, guys, if you like this type of content and you want to hear more from us,
like, share, and follow for more.
Yes. I was like, I'll pause. Yeah, so this is it. This is all we have for today. I hope this was good information. I hope you guys enjoy our special guest.
Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody. Say bye-bye.
I will see you guys next time.